Hey, it's me.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right, woohoo! Seems like we were just here, and now we're back again.
We were just here. I really need this tonight.
Okay.
I really need this connection, you, me, and the world. Because oh my God, like the world is a shit show out there.
The world is on fire, or at least
World's on fire.
America's
Just
on fire.
logging on and seeing Doug on the left say "woo," I'm like 1% happier
The world's a better
than when
place right now.
I need some woo. I need some woo. I need some levity. So here we are.
So yeah, jump on and tell us where you're from. We used to always do that when we did TikTok. Tell us where you're from,
Yeah.
so we can connect with you by place. I'm Paul, and we're in Fresno, California, in the blue belly button of California. We're not in the bluest part of the blue, but we're in the pretty blue part.
We're like the blue navel ring of the belly button. I'm not even sure the whole belly button did go blue. I don't know that Fresno County went blue this last presidential,
We
but the
we
city of Fresno.
slightly went for Trump, yes, in the Fresno
So
County.
yeah, so we're like the little sapphire jewel stud on the belly button.
As opposed to the counties around us that went like 70+% for Trump.
I haven't looked, honestly. I kind of need to stay in a bubble to some extent, I guess.
Well, it's funny because people keep telling me on social media, like, Trump won in a landslide, and I keep telling them, no, he got 48% of the vote. More people voted against him than voted for him, and from all Americans, he got about 21% of Americans voted for him. That is really not a landslide, like the opposite of a landslide. Now, maybe electoral college wise, and then everybody loves to do this, take every county in America and, make it red or blue. And so then it looks like this massive amount of red, but a county with 20 people in it that votes red is not a significant portion of America voting red.
Does not a landslide make?
Yes. Land does not vote. People vote. So, yes.
That's so smart. That should be a bumper sticker.
It's a meme for sure. I didn't make it up.
Okay.
I've seen it a lot. Yeah.
I
Land
am
does not vote.
Let me just say that I count on you to keep me current on the memes, like what the kids are saying with the memes. I don't partake too much.
Most memes come from like right-wing boomers who think like, look how smart I am. I posted a meme. Aren't I something?
There's a hilarious scene. My all-time favorite TV show is Veep, with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think there's 7 seasons, and Paul can attest. I have like every episode of every season memorized, and I just love
I
the
think
narrative.
you have, yes.
And there's a little blurb on one episode where her like much younger staff is trying to brief the vice president Julia Louis-Dreyfus on like this runaway social media kind of shitstorm that she's in. And so the young guy's like, ma'am, you're a meme. And she's like, what? And they had this like whole 20-second like meme ma'am kind of thing going on. And that's kind of how I feel like, what? Did she, meme ma'am, what? Anyway.
People are talking about snow. We don't get any snow here. And I don't think, when was the last time we got snow in Fresno? Like
Well, on the valley floor, I feel like maybe twice in the last 20 years, just like a little flurry. But the Sierra Nevadas, so our region, we're like the kind of
Yeah.
bowl in the middle of California. The Sierra Nevadas ring. I mean, it's just this gorgeous, like slate mountain range that you can see as far as the eye can see, snow on these beautiful mountains. It was very, very pronounced today. Tons of snow up there, which
Yeah.
is great. We're happy.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about where we live is we can drive to the snow and then drive home in the
Yeah.
same day, and that's a beautiful thing.
And you can this is always like my favorite thing to say. You can get up in the morning, go, like drive to the snow in your jeans and a sweatshirt, ski, maybe in your shorts, ski in your shorts and sweatshirt,
Yeah, a lot of skiing in the shorts in
and
my
then
day, yeah.
take ski half day, come home at lunch and go play golf in your shorts. Like you can do this whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. It is nice, and from that snow in the mountains, our, president, is that what we call him? Just, ordered some release of water from federal
Right.
water just for the hell of it, to show that he
Why?
could. Yeah,
Because he could. We
yeah,
call it the Trump dump. And
yeah,
it's the one thing that everybody in our region could agree on. Farmers, environmentalists, environmental justice advocates, regular folk, the one thing we can agree on is don't do that. Like,
yeah,
don't just turn on the faucets and just waste the water.
yeah. He was
So
like,
they really
"This'll help the fires in Southern California." Everybody's like, "No, it
no, it won't.
most fucking will not." Yeah,
You just wasted water. And the farmers are like, oh, we're kind of gonna need that in the summer when we're irrigating.
yeah, yeah.
So
But Trump cares nothing about any of that. We are in the wildest thing we've ever been through in the world, isn't it? It's just absolutely crazy.
speaking of crazy, Doug on the left says in the chat, did anyone else hear about North Dakota introducing a bill declaring Jesus King of the world? Have not heard about that. Is that real? Is that true? Or is that like urban legend or rural legend? I don't know.
Introducing a bill declaring Jesus King of the world. So what science are they using to base that on? Or
Why
once
would you even ask that? Like, what do you mean side? There's no, I mean,
like once Jesus is declared King of the world, what does that mean? Um, does he then have power over Donald Trump and President Musk at that point? Or
that is a very good question. That is a very good question. Would Donald Trump bend the knee and defer to King Jesus?
yeah, and then I could jump up and say, I am a prophet of Jesus, and so I will give the declarations that come from Jesus, and you will follow because Jesus is King of the world.
So this is making me depressed. All right. So listen, you know what did not make me depressed?
What's
It
that?
actually was very inspiring and liberating was the conversation that we had with Neil, Dr. Neil, on Sunday morning.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Sorry, I was reading Alex
I know, me
Avery's
too. I'm
post
reading.
there.
I know, exactly, me too. Like for people listening on audio only, they're like, "What? What happened?" We both just instantly, our eyes were drawn to this comment from Alex. He says, "Trump has posted that he is a king, but surely Satan was supposed to be the king of this world." Yeah.
Well, I know it's depressing, but I do have to, Trump posted, if you're saving the country, it's not against the law. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that was, and then so here is one great meme I saw on that. Somebody took that post. Hi, Therapies, our friend Rebecca. We love her. Somebody took that post from Trump that said, if you save the country, you cannot violate the law, or however he said it.
Mhm.
And they put
Right.
Luigi Mangioni's picture underneath it. I thought Well, that's pretty brilliant. That's pretty brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Wow. Wow.
So, and then today he declared, what's the Ukrainian president's name? I can't remember.
Zelensky.
Declared him a dictator.
Vladimir Zelensky.
Declared Zelensky a dictator and Ukraine responsible for the war. So
Yeah, I sure hope. I
that's our
haven't seen the
president.
news yet. I'm on the West Coast. We haven't watched the evening news yet, but I sure hope that Republican senators are using their voice, using their words to be like, actually, no, to do their little thing. Like, oh, no. I mean, Lindsey Graham, you can usually count on to be a little bit of a backstop on Russia stuff publicly.
You know
like,
who?
I mean,
you know who
bit.
I did see use their voice on that?
Who?
Mike Pence. Now, Mike Pence is nobody, but he did. I saw that he did step up and say, "No, Mr. Trump, Ukraine did not start the war." Yeah.
What did he? Did he post, or was he like interviewed? And he's like, "Where'd you see that?"
It looked like he was standing, like he had a speaking engagement, and he was holding a mic and talking or something. So I'll have to check that out.
Gosh.
Who knew that Mike Pence would be the only Republican to have the testicles to stand up against Donald Trump?
Yeah. Well, Rebecca in the live chat asks, as a Canadian, I don't understand how this is allowed to happen. Has he not broken laws? I just want to say to Rebecca, as we're hearing stories of Canadians booing American sports teams,
which I had to respect. They booed the national anthem at a hockey match between Canada and the U.S.
It was just, I mean, when I hear that, I'm just like, Canada, we feel you. Like like this is, I don't think those athletes on the ice or on the sports car, like it's obviously it's not them, but like this is such a disjointed time. And we're with you, Canada. We're with you. Like, use your words too, but okay, so how, okay, have laws been broken, etc.? I mean, it's like you just have to file all the paperwork. Have to go through the legal process. And, there are a lot of temporary restraining orders that have gone out, and those only last a little while. And then you've got to adjudicate. And most people outside of these kind of crazy political times, like most lawyers I know would tell you, like, honestly, do your best, obviously, at all times. But you can, like when you're in a court of law, like you never really know how a judge is going to come down on something. There's just, it's a crapshoot. And so most of what I hear in terms of news coverage and that sort of thing right now on these legal proceedings is our legal analysts who are saying, like, I mean, in a normal world, this is a pretty clear cut, shut, open and shut case. But none of us really know because, like, it was this who appointed this judge, and if they're going to appeal it, and does it go to the Supreme Court, and is the Supreme Court going to be strict constitutionalist, or are they going to do political favors? So that is the most unnerving thing about all this, is like it really feels like there are no guardrails.
Yeah, and we've had a moment already where a judge ordered them to unfreeze payments that had already been approved by Congress, who are in charge of the finances. And then Trump did not unfreeze the payments. And the judge said, hey, this, that is a violation of the law. And Trump pointed to the Supreme Court immunity thing and, is saying, I don't have to. And so, and even the vice president Vance has said the courts can't tell a general in a war how to fight the war. And, so they're already setting up this thing of how are the courts going to tell us what to do? So that's the really scary thing, is if the courts say you have to do this, and they say, well, we don't care what you say. What army do you have that's going to make us do this?
Right.
Then we got a real crisis.
So my appeal right now, and you heard me say this last night, and I was in front of a group of people today. This is my appeal to anybody who would hear this. It is literally mission critical that citizens of this nation pick up the phone and call their members of Congress and don't stop calling and don't stop expressing your concern. I don't care if you talk to the same student intern 50 times in a week, like call your members of Congress. What I'm observing on the ground in some Republican districts, that members are hearing, they are listening. They're like, yeah, we're concerned about that too. Okay, yeah. I mean, I know that they're probably going to maneuver behind the scenes on things, and I don't know that I would expect to see any loud pushback publicly yet, but it's the one and only thing that really does mobilize a member to act, is hearing directly from their constituents.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and people are all saying, "Look, Trump's doing more in a month of the presidency than any other president." Well, yeah, when you don't follow the law,
Hmm.
it's pretty easy to try and get things done. Our system works slowly, and it does so for a reason, and that's
And there's no evidence that anything's actually being done.
yeah, he's just signing executive orders. That doesn't change anything, you know. And Elon saying, we just saved another $82 billion or whatever, doesn't mean anything. You know who's encourages me on a daily basis and is the person in Congress who I think has the biggest brass balls of anybody so
I
far?
do. I know who you're going to say. It's AOC.
AOC, by
Yeah.
far. I think every time I get a chance to watch her do an interview on YouTube, I'm just like, wow, she's got balls. I wish there were more people in Congress who had them,
Hmm.
because nobody, maybe Bernie Sanders, maybe. Everybody else is like running for cover, man. It's, the Republicans are either all leveraged or afraid of getting primaried, or they're in the pocket, they're rooting Trump on, and all the Democrats seem to be like scurrying for little little holes in the wall or something. And yeah, Blanca is saying, yeah, I like AOC. Richard saying she's smart too. She is super smart. I've been very, very
Hmm.
impressed listening to her. So she's the one that's like, here's how we do it. Here's how we fight it, So it's been interesting. All right. So, yes, we talked to Neil Douglas Klotz, PhD, who wrote a book. Where is it?
Who
Where is
wrote
it?
many books. I mean,
He's written many books.
I was really kind of overwhelmed by just how much content he's produced.
Yeah. And Aramaic Jesus is a book that was given to me by our friend Meg. And then Neil's publicist sent me this one, Aramaic Jesus, Book of Days, 40 Days of Revelation. And these are amazing. It's taking Jesus and the words from the Gospels and translating them through the Aramaic, which is the language Jesus actually spoke. And we were pretty fascinated by what he had to say. And although you did admit that you dramatize it just a little bit at times, I felt like you were literally sitting there with your mouth falling open in amazement.
Okay, so for those of you who listen on audio, I highly encourage you to watch the video version of Itch, because I do try to do my part to, like be a little theatrical, because like I sit on Zooms all day for work, and then once a week I come here and I'm like, oh, like let's be a little entertaining. And so, yes, might I have dramatically let my mouth fall open a time or two listening to him? Yes, but probably 80% of the times my mouth was hanging open was because I was truly gobsmacked by what he was saying. I was like, where have you been all my life? And he's
Gobsmacked.
produced
That's a
so
good
much.
word. I love
Yeah, good,
gobsmacked.
good. I know. Yeah, and the guy's from the UK, or he's in the UK, so it's kind of a British word.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was just remarkable to hear him present the Aramaic version of Jesus. And while we were talking, I was texting a friend of mine who is Assyrian and speaks Aramaic as her native language, and she and I were like text chatting while I was listening and I was passing this stuff along. She's like, yeah, this guy, what he's saying is exactly right. Like, it's so different to consider the words of Jesus through the original like tone and affect and language. It's completely different.
Yeah. And I sent out a message that we were going to be on today and talked about how we're learning that the Jesus we were taught growing up is very different from the Jesus we're learning about now. And by the way, that podcast uh, will be available tonight. I haven't been able to get it up yet for a number of reasons, but it'll be available on your favorite podcast app. You can get it on the Evangelicalish YouTube channel. You've got to hear it. It's fascinating. But when I talk to so many Christians on social media who are certain they were born in the one moment in history when Christians have figured out exactly what the Bible says, exactly what Jesus says, exactly what it means. And I say, why are you so sure that you were so lucky to be born in the one place, one time where you have all truth in all the universe? And because there are some passages in the Hebrew scripture or the English New Testament, we don't know exactly what they mean. Some of them could have many different meanings, and we're making our best guess. Some of them we don't know exactly what the word means. The word homosexual in the New Testament is a word that the writer made up. It's not an actual real word. It's a combination of a couple of words. If the writer and in one of the cases we know it was Paul, and some of the others we don't, there were like a dozen words that they could have used to say homosexual in the Greek at the time they were writing. Chose none of those, made up a word. And so you can't say definitively, we know it's this. Yet Christians, and particularly evangelicals, are like, no, we know. We know with certainty what Jesus said. So then to hear it so when Jesus was speaking, he would have been speaking Aramaic, and this word has several different meanings in Aramaic. It really starts to give that feel of like, okay, I don't have to live with the dogma and that comfy certainty of evangelicalism, of that we're the ones that know what Jesus said, but we can start to see Jesus from a bigger, broader vantage point. And like I said, to wrap this up, this long soliloquy up, we can see a Jesus that represents a universal love and wisdom that is way bigger than this little American Jesus we were taught about. And that wisdom and love, because of our background, can be embodied in the story and teachings of Jesus, but not confined to this evangelical view.
I feel like this episode on Sunday, which it's already up on YouTube, so people don't have to wait to go find it on the Ish website. Like, it's up, right? Like, you can just
Right. It's on the Evangelicalish YouTube channel.
Yeah, Evangelicalish YouTube channel. So you can just like click on it and it's right there for you. But I would say, and I need to write this in my journal, what he was unpacking to me felt like a decades, if not a lifetime in the making, sort of like a decadal pursuit of like just trying to like the real Jesus, like how to access what is this about? How do we get there? You know, is it this? Is it that? I mean, like it to me was water on a dry sponge and tied together so many loose ends in my deconstruction journey in a way that was, yeah, like for those of you who have been tracking with us for a while, we've talked about this notion of religion and politics coming together spiritually, psychologically, whatever, in our culture, and forming like a dam that really actually held back the true flow of the divine. And so, like, the very thing that we're saying, I was like, oh, this is the divine. It's American church or political Christianity. It's like, no, 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 no. It's actually, that's the thing that's holding back the real. And so, Paul and I have been in this journey of like, okay, well, what's the real? What's the real? And again, I'm not trying to suggest that like all of a sudden, like, oh, we know, or we found, no. But all I just mean to say is it was like a life moment hearing this person represent with authority and insight on a more accurate representation of the person of Christ. So anyway, it was a really big deal. Like the
Let's
dam burst in my
let's
mind.
remember a little bit of what he talked about and give people a taste if they weren't here with us Sunday morning when we had him on. So this is Neil Douglas Klotz, the author of Aramaic Jesus.
I sort of burnt out of that occupation in my late 20s because it didn't seem like any change was happening. People did not make changes based on facts, facts as we were presenting them. Facts didn't really mean a lot to people when they were making major decisions in their life. And I found actually when looking within, as we would say, that I wasn't making decisions based on facts in my life either, really. So that set me off on a spiritual search, and I ended up with the Western Sufis in California at the time. And because I had a publishing background, they put me in charge of editing the letters and diaries of one of their teachers who had passed on. And in one of these documents, he wrote that he wanted to learn how to pray the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, but he had never done that. And for me, that was a sort of epiphany moment. I thought, well, yeah, because the Sufis are all about, chanting and the mysticism of sound and like what we'd call in Eastern traditions mantra. And so then the words, the mantra, so to speak, of Jesus, again, to use an Eastern term, would be in Aramaic. And so what does the Aramaic say? And that sort of set me out on that search, really.
So yeah. And
Well,
as he started,
that was just kind of the lead up. Yeah, that was him just explaining how he got into this pursuit.
yeah. So that's not very inspiring, you're telling me.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Let me try another one then. And
yeah. And Richard, I see Richard's comment. When we were doing the video, I heard an echo as well, but I think it was just because we were replaying that video. But what I also notice is, in addition to my gobsmacked look of my mouth hanging open, I also flare my nostrils quite large when I'm really excited about something that Neil is saying. So anyway, that was a nice view of very large inflamed nostrils on my part.
okay.
You gonna play another one?
Yes. This, let me make sure. Let's see. Hang on one second. Hang on, everybody. Hang on. Sorry, got to look around my camera. Okay. Now, I got you. Here we go. I think if I mute my mic, I think we'll not have that.
Okay.
Feedback. And
you know what I'm talking about. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Correct.
One place it says the kingdom of heaven is within you. The other says the kingdom of heaven is among you. In both cases, he said the same thing. There's no difference. What is within us is among us. The way I treat my inner, you could say nafsha, my inner self, with whatever compassion or honesty and love and all of that is the way I'm going to treat my outer community, because again, the nafsha was seen as a sort of a group entity of different impressions, if you will. So that's fairly key. The other thing is you get a lot of these things from the Gospel of John that are mistranslated or misinterpreted, like before Abraham was, or I am, the I am is, or I and my Father are one. Well, let's take that one. Where it says in John, Jesus is supposed to have said, I and my Father are one. What he says is, I and the ever-living life, the creating source, are one together. And they don't translate the word together generally. I've never found it translated, but in Aramaic it's there. So he says this is this great human paradox. We are one with everything, but we're also individual. So when he says one together, it's you can't make sense of it. It's like we are one, but we're individual. I recognize that you are you, I am I. You could say I am me. And so what bridges that is simply love. This makes love possible. The fact that we can review others as distinct from ourselves makes really human love possible. Otherwise, it's just like we think everybody's the same as us. Or, we have this concept of God, merging with God is going to be like, we're going to totally lose, merge into some big cosmic soup or something like this. And this isn't what he was talking about.
You okay?
Yeah, sorry, I had a little fur ball. Yeah, that was definitely a powerful moment. And I somebody shared with me right after that episode, there's like a 6-minute video of Richard Rohr explaining the whole thing about how in ancient times Hebrews, or I guess I don't know exactly which people, like I guess people would not say the name of God. It was considered to be so disrespectful, and no one would dare utter like the name of God. And so they would say the consonants or whatever, and they would know where the vowels are supposed to go, but there was always this hushed tone. And that they, like, literally Yahweh came from this notion of it's just breath in, Yahweh, way. And so they're like, in ancient times, their perception of God was breath and life. And so hearing Dr. Neal talk about nafsha, I'm not saying that right, but the individual life breath that makes my body, function, and then the Yahweh breath all around us, that's, the divine that sustains, like the creating force is what he called it. Like all of that to me was kind of what he was just hitting on just there. And that is to me is very eye-opening and powerful.
Yeah, and I love that idea of everybody being one, and so in that, I think sin as a list of rules is such a farce, and a pulls us away from this idea of sin being I'm violating this idea that I and you, we are connected, and we're connected by the bonds of love. So to murder you is ridiculous because I'm harming myself in this even. And I think it's what people use this thing in Christianity all the time, like, well, Jesus' standard is even higher than the rules of the Mosaic law, because he said, you say don't commit adultery. I say don't even look on a woman with lust. But I think partly what Jesus was doing is mocking the hypocrisy of how the good religious people always made loopholes for themselves in law. But I think also what he's talking about there is like, if I'm looking on a woman with lust, I'm taking the bond of our connection as human beings, and I'm taking ownership of her in a way that is a violation of our relationship of love. I can look at her and say, that's an amazingly beautiful woman, or an amazingly handsome man, or whatever, and that's not sin. The sin is, why am I doing something that can create such bad outcomes of making her uncomfortable or making me act in a way that's in violation of relationship? Because our relationship to one another as human beings and as part of this big wholeness is everything. So I should try to avoid doing anything that is a violation of that. But then also it takes away this idea of like, okay, I know the rules. How can I get as close to the rule without violating it and still call myself pure and a Christian, and all these things that religion does to us, and in many ways makes us into hypocrites and assholes, by making that sort of game of rules. So yeah.
I'm
Our friend,
struggling right now. Huh?
no, go ahead. I was just about to say our friend Craig Sharton is here from Charlotte, North Carolina.
There we go. I'm struggling because I've been hearing and starting to assimilate this idea of like, okay, we're actually all one, this spiritual the spiritual connection that, and I felt it most strongly like when my mom passed and I could still feel her presence in my life. I was like, for the first time, I feel that spiritual realm more than I ever have. And it's through, through the loss of a loved one. Everything else has just been kind of conceptual. So I've been thinking about like, okay, yeah, maybe this like individual breath, collective, maybe that's kind of what the afterlife is like you go into oneness, to wholeness again. And that's what is meant by kingdom of God and that sort of thing. So I'm struggling with that because how do we reconcile like the first 20 minutes of our conversation and what everything we're considering with really intense pain right now with people in our country that are like I don't want to think about being whole or one with certain people. And I know it's like, yeah, because they're not acting, they're whatever. I mean, it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's a really hard thing to put into practice with people who are not simpatico with you.
So this is why, and maybe the main reason why I choose to believe in purgatory. But I also think there are good reasons to believe in purgatory, that before you're returned to the whole, and that's WHOLE, not HOLE, you go through a refining process. And for some, that refining process can be a really nasty process where there is much weeping and gnashing of teeth, as Jesus is quoted in the Gospels. And I love the idea that there is a Jewish version of reincarnation out there, and there is a Jewish version of soul annihilation. So, all of those are possibilities in my worldview that we as a whole do make a determination somehow of like, okay, this person is really a shithead. They're going to have a really, really, really long purgatory to be refined, to be ready to step back in to the group. Some of us will have a much, much shorter purgatory, and that refining process will be maybe a little hot, maybe a little hard, but we'll be like, oh yeah, I need this. I really, this, it's like you and your massages, they hurt, but they hurt so good, like, oh, I really need this. Oh, that hurts, but I need it. So
Yeah.
there's that kind of thing. So that's what gives me comfort. I cannot believe that, men like Adolf Hitler or Jeffrey Dahmer or Donald Trump or Elon Musk won't face some
Consequences.
reckoning, and maybe not consequences as much as a reckoning.
Yeah.
You
reconciling.
you were a real dick, and now you got to pay the price for that.
Well,
I can't believe in an eternal hell, but yes, face the hell of being an asshole. Yes, there has to be something there.
I'm going to work on that. I'm not certain how I feel about what you just said. I'm going to work on that. But the other thing,
there's a purgatory in a whole lot of religions. So just so you know.
Yeah. So the other thing that I'm wondering about / questioning and would welcome feedback from people who are listening live, from you, is this. So I find myself like I'm really, 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 really distressed about what's happening with our society and our nation of laws. And I'm really grieved by what's happening. And I would probably in years past, I've never lived through anything like this, but let's say something that was really distressing. I would go in my prayer closet and I would pray and I would contend for what I felt in my heart was like a heaven on earth kind of resolution to whatever was really troubling me. And I would just work it through, and I'd kind of pray, 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 and work through and kind of get to the point where I could get a sense of alignment with what I think I experience as like divine love and have a sense of surrender. And having gone through a deconstruction journey over the last 3 years, it's not as simple as just like, oh, something's bothering you. Go into your prayer closet and pray until you feel a sense of resolve or resolution. I don't think I subscribe so much. Like, I'm not sure where to go with my part of me that wants to petition and wants to imagine petitioning to the Almighty and that there's perfect love that would respond because I'm praying and asking. So I'm struggling with that. But then I'm also going to tell you this: after hearing Dr. Neil and reading the first devotional in his book, you know what? I found myself praying, and I found myself literally same feeling I used to get, head to toe, just like energy dropping all over me, this like energy field, goosebumps, like I feel the presence of something that I don't normally feel. So then I'm like, well, gosh, maybe I'm supposed to be praying. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm in that little tailspin, which I know I hear from a lot of deconstructing people that they struggle with this too. What say you, unconventional Pastor Paul?
Oh, you're asking, I thought you were asking our chat folks.
I'm asking anybody who would respond, which does include the chatters in the box, but yeah,
Yeah.
you too.
I actually think there is a broader realm of wisdom and energy and love to reach out to now. And I honestly don't. I sort of think we're dialing up sort of the same stuff when you were praying to Jesus to come help. Um, Although I do think Christianity brings a certain amount of denial with it. Like, oh, I can just ask God to take care of it and then I don't have to do anything. Um, but I also think a lot of it is the same thing. You're doing mantras in prayer. Oh God, help. Oh God, come.
Yeah. It's
Come,
just
Holy
like a
Spirit.
different version of the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
And so it's still there a little bit. But so if you're praying for love and energy and wisdom to come through your family heritage, or a spirit guide, or wisdom from heaven, it's I think there is an array of help to reach out to. I believe seated with Christ in heavenly realms in Corinthians, or is it Colossians? Corinthians, I think, is all about having access to something greater than ourselves. So I'm still a mystical, spiritual person, and I think there may be more access because I don't have to beg a God to forgive me of
Yeah.
stealing chewing gum when I was 12 to try to get him to come help. I just have access to these things because I'm human and a part of this universal system.
I definitely have experienced a freedom. Like I don't, if somebody used these words and they really resonated with me. So I'm parroting what I've heard, but like, I don't have to step over shame to, to feel like I've got access to the divine. And
Mm, I like that.
I never knew how much shame I did feel. Cause like I'm a goody two shoes, y'all. Like I am a like squeaky clean, goody two shoes person. And so and so I would have probably on the surface been like, oh, I don't have any, like, well, but the fact of the matter is, because of just the culture of the, evangelical church, you're always feeling some shame. You're always feeling like you're not good enough and you have to perform. And so I was like, would not access spiritual stuff because it's like, well, I got to go through my penance first. I have to reconcile the fact that
If you're
I'm
not
good
feeling
enough.
shame, you're ashamed that you're not feeling shame. You're like,
Because
oh,
you
come on
obviously are
now.
prideful. You're prideful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
So
that misinterpretations of Romans. I think it's Romans 3:4. All have sinned. We're all sinners.
I mean, listen, as a 5-year-old and grade school person who was witnessing to neighbors and my grade school friends, don't you think I was preaching from that verse? Yes, I was. Are you included in the word all? Yes, you are. You have sinned. You are shameful. You must say this prayer.
All means all, y'all. Yeah.
Um,
I had an epiphany when I was having a little go between on social media yesterday with, Christians love this go and sin no more. It's their favorite, one of their very favorite passages in the Bible. And I'm like, okay, if Jesus is savior of the world and his blood changed everything, then why, when he turned to the woman and said, I chased away your condemners and I don't condemn you, I declare you not condemned, why then did he have to say, now stop sinning or else? What if go and sin no more means you're a sinner, stop sinning? Then obviously his ability to take away shame and condemnation is not that good. Why would he then need to tell her, don't be a sinner? It's
I don't know. What
really,
do you think? Maybe it's a misinterpretation.
I think it is a misinterpretation. I think what
Oh,
he's saying is, I don't condemn you, so you're not a sinner. Don't go and think you're a sinner. She probably, there's a very good chance
ah,
she was a
I
prostitute
hear you.
because her husband dumped her. And once a woman in that society was dumped by her husband and she didn't have
Huh.
a kind kinsman to take her, and she basically had her only choice to keep eating was begging or laying down for a man, for some guy somewhere. And so I think Jesus was telling her, you're not condemned, go and don't consider
Don't
yourself to
think you're
be
that. Well,
a
let's do
shameful
this.
sinner.
I'll bet you could email Dr. Neil and ask him about that specific
All right.
verse, and we can share out what we learned from that. It's a very
Yeah,
good inquiry. Yeah, we're getting some really great comments in the
we
chat.
really
Appreciate.
are.
I know. I just wish we were like in one great big living room together. That would be a lot more fun. Um, but yeah, let's take a
Read
little
Alex
tour of
is
the.
there.
Well, yeah, that one is. So appreciate that. Yeah, Alex says this is brilliant. So it's perhaps more like we can intentionally choose to regulate our breath and heartbeat to align with that Yahweh breath and unity. Yes, this yeah, like the whole notion of breath uh as spirit, breath as spirit, breathing in is I've heard, I think Richard Rohr said it this way too in Universal Christ. Breathing in is life, exhaling is death. It's like you're constantly resurrecting and dying. And is just like ancient people understood that the very fact that you were alive and breathing was this spiritual, was how you were connected to the bigger, to the spiritual. Um, I think I'm getting that right. I don't know. I might be butchering that, but that's the way I'm kind of thinking about it.
Yeah. Rebecca says in the chat, talking about the woman caught in adultery, she says, best translation I heard of that is, sin there is adjective, place, don't live in that place anymore. So exactly what you're saying. Like, yeah, don't. Because I don't think he could say stop doing what you're doing without saying don't eat and die, go die. But he's saying just change your mindset and then maybe something new comes along out of that.
Mm. So many times that got quoted to me. Go and sin no more. But Jesus said, go and sin no more. Go and sin
Oh,
no more. Yeah,
oh,
we can love the homosexuals, but Jesus said, go and sin no more. So we got to
oh
say it. We got to
gosh.
tell the gay people, don't sin anymore.
I wish I had a dime for every time a Christian said that to me on social media. Jesus sat
He
with the
said,
sinners, but
yeah.
he always told them, "Go and sin no more." And I'm like, "No, he didn't always tell them that. We only have that quote once in a passage that was not in the original manuscripts." But I think it's a good story, but don't sit here and tell he never told Zacchaeus, "Go and sin no more." Never told the woman at the well, "Go and sin no more."
He did sing a very cute little song to Zacchaeus, however.
I'm not sure Jesus invented the song.
No, no, no. I'm quite certain he did.
The
He
Zacchaeus was a
said,
wee little man.
you're a wee little man, and a wee little man are you. And he saw him climbed up in that tree. He said, you come down because I'm coming to your house today.
Did I tell you that I heard somebody say that that passage is crafted in a way that it may be that Jesus was actually the wee little man, not Zacchaeus, that Zacchaeus had to climb up into a tree to see Jesus because Jesus was small?
Oh, I know. I've never heard that.
Yeah. That the story may have actually been saying Jesus was small, therefore Zacchaeus had to climb up into a tree to be able to see him.
Oh,
Uh,
gosh.
Craig in the
Yeah.
chat said, I know that this is an unusual perspective. I think that this is a time where we can gain empathy with people around the world and throughout history who have lives with unjust systems. What do you think of that?
Um, I wonder if, Craig, if what you're saying is like, I don't know, are you in your meditation time, are you contemplating people around the world who are experiencing unjust systems and you're finding some like strength and alignment? Wait, hold on. Who have lived with unjust systems.
Yeah, I was
Who have
thinking,
lived with. Yeah.
is that in the past or are we thinking America can't be so comfy anymore with the fact that our system is so good? Now we can start to have empathy because we can
Yeah.
relate to having
Yeah, like,
an
I'm
unjust
wondering,
system.
this is a good example of how, we could completely misconstrue something that Craig is trying to say, because he's not here to say it directly himself. But I wonder, Craig, are you saying there's maybe a silver lining in what's going on? Is that we're like, "Oh, shit, like, this is what it's like." And now we have this empathy, and so maybe it will course correct and cause a change in human behavior because now we, the comfy Americans, are going through the same kind of thing. Maybe that's what Craig is saying.
And I think there's a real truth in that and a beauty in it as well. And in also in that facing times like this, we get to find out who we are. They just you really find out who you are in
That
moments like this.
Hey, Craig says, "Yes, Ashley. I got it. I see you, Craig. I got it. Okay,
Our
good."
friend Mike Wells is here, and he says thoughts and prayer changes has an effect on the one who prays, which is good to have an effect on the world, be the change. So I think he's referring back to your thing about prayer,
Right.
and he's saying prayer will change you, and
Yes,
then
I
you will go
totally
change the
agree.
world.
Listen, listen, that has been a frustrating thing in my deconstructing journey is prayer has been a major source of energy, life, seeing things differently, all of that. And so like not having that same practice to rely on or questioning that practice has been really difficult. And so I like the idea of like, hey, you know what? There is benefit. There's I think maybe what I'm wrestling with is like I used to think that I was petitioning the throne room, and if I was praying in alignment with this divine love and this perfect God, that I would that God, we're taught this in evangelical circles that God will get up off the throne and respond, right? Like so, it's this sense of empowering that happens when you're praying, and So I don't think I see things the same way on that point. So then it's just a whole weird situation. And this has come up a lot on our ish podcast, is like people are struggling with the notion of prayer in a deconstructing, post deconstruction space.
And I think again, I think it's kind of good because our and we weren't in this like a lot of people were, that and God standing up means a whole bunch of people will convert to Christianity. But still there was an underlying underlying thought of like, yes, and people we will be converted to our way of thinking, and Jesus will be king of the world and king of North Dakota, as we heard earlier. And now we get to think more of like, and people will be brought together, which is a little bit of what Craig is saying. We will understand the whole of the human condition. And we will applaud Muslims and Buddhists and Hindu and Sikhs and everybody who's out there loving their neighbor as themselves, and applaud them loving themselves, because no longer do we need them to become like us to be worthy of love. Yeah. So, yeah. Do you want to do what's on my mind before we finish, or are we just kind of doing that as a whole in the episode?
I think if we do, it has to be something completely light and trivial, because we've been plumbing the depths of what's happening in society and our response and all that kind of stuff. So on that condition, I will agree to do what's on my mind, but it has to be very light, maybe a little trashy. How about that?
I'll have to change mine up then. All right.
Okay.
Do you have something trashy to go with?
Shoot, now I was hoping you would.
Well, I could go with the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special.
Yeah. That's a good one. Let's do that. That's a good pop culture kind of thing.
So there were a couple of things that really stood out. They had the concert on Friday. It took us a while to figure all that out. But so one of the highlights for me was Lady Gaga and Andy Samberg singing Dick in a Box together. If you've never seen,
you would deliver on the trashy part. So thank you.
If you've never seen Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake sing the song My Dick in a Box, look it up on YouTube. It is
hilarious.
Outrageously hilarious.
Yeah.
And Lady Gaga singing it like, Lady Gaga can sing like almost nobody else. And putting that voice to Dick in a Box was outstanding. And now, like Lady Gaga can sing, Meryl Streep is to acting, right? And so she was in, I don't know if you've ever seen Saturday Night Live has these skits where people are picked up by aliens.
The alien abduction skits, yes.
Yeah.
With Kate McKinnon, right.
There's always two people who are like, oh, they picked me up and cradled me like a baby, and I felt warmth and love. And then Kate McKinnon is, he's like, yeah, well, they had like this, crane that grabbed me and it yanked the pants right off of me. So now I'm being lifted with my, whatever hanging out.
Yes, very clever, colorful language. Yep.
And so for this, they had Meryl Streep as her mother, and Meryl Streep played this, sorry to say this, like trailer park mom and, trashy mom, and she played it to the hilt. And
that was spectacular.
Super funny.
That was one of my favorite. Okay, so I'll piggyback off of that and say, but I still need to go watch the Lady Gaga Dick in a Box. I haven't seen that yet. But I was really touched by Adam Sandler's solo, his guitar song, that he does so well. Just, I don't know, it was very emotional and touching, and like, it was really was really big because I don't know, just this is something we've grown up with, and Saturday Night Live is definitely a part of like our family dynamic. So I
Well,
enjoyed that.
of course, my brothers and I were watching Saturday Night Live when our parents came home from being out one night, and John Belushi was playing samurai something, and he was doing this dance. And my parents thought it was something evil, and they're like, "You are never to watch Saturday Night Live ever again." And so Saturday Night Live was not always a part of my life growing up because that happened quite often.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that was spectacular, though, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet, was Sabrina Carpenter singing. They opened the 50th anniversary show, her singing with Paul Simon,
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
singing a song. Uh, Gosh, I can't remember the song now, but singing a song that Paul Simon sang with George Harrison back in the first season, and that was just beautiful.
Yeah,
So,
she's a spectacular talent. I love
yeah.
watching her perform.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you kind of think pop singer, and maybe they use little machines to make her sound good, but she
she
harmonized
really sings.
beautifully with Paul Simon.
Well, let me share this one other cultural experience I had. It was so beautiful and touching. So anybody in Central California will know Mas Masamoto. He's a organic peach farmer, poet, author, just a really brilliant sort of Renaissance person that's like a farmer and a poet. I mean, just a very cool person. His family is amazing. So Mas's mother and her like that generation was interned in World War II, taken from the Central Valley of California, and I think to a internment camp in Arizona. I'm not totally sure about
Arizona,
that,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah. So
What Trump is now doing to brown-skinned people in Guantanamo.
yeah. So Moss's family lived through that. They're now counting like 4 generations of Japanese American farmers, in this region. So 7 years ago, he went to our local Philharmonic, or maybe they approached him, and he wrote this story about this 4 generations of farm women, and they commissioned a symphony off of this story. And they looked far and wide for composers to create this new symphony, and they found this young sister couple duet, young Japanese American composers out of Berkeley, and they wrote this symphony based on this story, and then they performed it in our community this last weekend to sold out audiences. They followed it with a couple of other symphonies, and I mean, it was to die for.
Wow,
And it's going to be on YouTube, I believe. So that's going to be a cool thing to watch.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So we were all cultured up. Like Saturday Night Live and the symphony was like Dick in a Box and original creative work inspired by 4 generations of Japanese American farm workers. So there you go. There you go. And with that, we put a pin in this episode of Ish.
Very nice. I think I just added the episode with Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz on our podcast page, so it should be up and available. Although I'm looking at it and I'm not sure. Is it in drafts?
Well, let's do this. We could figure that out maybe offline.
It'll be up very shortly, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But this Friday, I mean, we are really delivering big for all of you, and we're excited to do it. We have an additional extra show Friday at noon. So if you're on Pacific Coast time, you can take a little lunch break with us and watch. This is somebody you met and that you're excited to introduce to the Ish community.
Yes. Her name is Amber Contorna Wild, and her father worked at Focus on the Family, was on and maybe the founder of Adventures in Odyssey, if you remember that, for kids. And she came out while her father was working at Focus on the Family, and you can imagine that was awkward. And so she's going to tell us that story, and she is an amazing person. And that is going to be really interesting to listen to. And by the way, thank you, Mike Wells, Paul Simon and Sabrina Carpenter sang "Homeward Bound, I Wish I Was Homeward Bound." Yeah, so there you go.
And scene. That's it.
All right. Good night, everybody.